He was a young drifter with no family, no money, and hardly a clue where he was headed. Each day, he'd watch the folks of Silver Creek go about their business, catching glances at shopkeepers, ranchers, and townsfolk who seemed to have their lives figured out. But Cole was different. He didn't have a trade, nor did he think he had any value to offer. He'd take up small chores now and then, but he always looked down, feeling like a shadow among the townspeople. One day, Sheriff Billy Carson offered him a chance. The town had a stack of side jobs no one wanted: mucking out stables, fixing fences, sweeping the dusty floors of the saloon. Most folks turned up their noses at such lowly work, but the sheriff saw something in Cole's eyes. "Boy," he said, "you got two hands and a town full of opportunities if you're willin' to work for 'em." Sheriff Carson knew this could be Cole's chance to prove himself and maybe even change his luck. But Cole hesitated. "I reckon I'm not cut out for much, Sheriff," he muttered. He feared failing, afraid he'd embarrass himself in front of everyone. He'd been told his whole life that he wasn't worth much, and those words stuck with him. But as he watched the townsfolk carry on with their day, he saw their struggles and hard work and felt a spark deep within. The choice was there: sink or swim. That evening, as Cole sat by the creek, an old prospector named Gus Jenkins approached him. Gus was a wiry, weather-beaten man with a crooked smile and a life's worth of wisdom. "Cole," Gus began, "success ain't something you're born with. It's built, one back-breaking job at a time. Take the small work nobody else wants. Let folks see you ain't afraid of hard labor. Do that, and you'll be the last man they call a drifter." Gus's words lit a fire in Cole, giving him a glimmer of confidence. Gus handed him a worn leather glove and said, "Just take it one job at a time, son." The next morning, Cole showed up at the stables with his sleeves rolled up, determined to prove his worth. He mucked stalls until his back ached, fixed broken fences, and swept the saloon until it shone. He took on every menial job in town, learning skills he'd never known before. It wasn't glamorous work, but with each task, he felt a little more pride building inside him. Cole faced sneers and scoffs from a few townsfolk who thought he'd always be a drifter. But he earned the respect of others: Rosie, the saloon keeper, who appreciated his grit; Tom, the blacksmith, who taught him the art of horseshoeing; and young Timmy, a boy who looked up to Cole as a role model. The town banker, however, saw Cole as nothing but a charity case, openly doubting he'd ever make something of himself. But Cole shrugged it off and kept on, earning allies in unexpected places as he took on jobs no one else wanted. As Cole's reputation grew, he started to think of himself as more than just a drifter. One evening, he spotted Annabelle, the town's beauty, standing outside the general store. She was kind and gentle, with a heart as pure as the clear creek water. Cole's feelings for her stirred, but his old insecurities crept back in, and he wondered if a man with his past was worthy of someone like her. The turning point came when a flash flood hit Silver Creek. The town was in shambles, and people needed every able hand to rebuild. Cole jumped in, working alongside the townsfolk, lifting heavy timber, rebuilding homes, and restoring hope. He worked day and night, not for himself but for the town that had given him a chance. When he saved young Timmy from being swept away by the flood, folks saw him as more than a drifter; they saw a hero. When the floodwaters receded, Cole was no longer the man he'd been when he first drifted into town. He'd become someone who could be depended on. The townsfolk gathered in the square, offering him land to build his own home and a job running the stables he'd so tirelessly rebuilt. But the real reward came when Annabelle walked up to him, her eyes full of admiration. "I'd be honored to call you mine, Cole," she said softly. And in that moment, he knew he'd earned more than riches, he'd won love and respect. Now a respected man, Cole faced new challenges. With land to tend and a life to build, he worked harder than ever, always mindful of the values that had transformed him. He knew there'd be trials ahead, but with each sunrise, he tackled his responsibilities head-on, fueled by the pride of knowing he'd made a life for himself from nothing. Months passed, and the drifter who'd once lacked confidence now stood tall. His heart swelled with gratitude as he looked over his land, his growing stables, and Annabelle by his side. The townsfolk looked to him for guidance and support, seeing in him the strength and perseverance they all aspired to embody. He'd transformed not only his life but the spirit of the entire town. Cole Tanner returned to the townsfolk as a beacon of hope and hard work. His story was a testament to grit, resilience, and the power of side hustles that others turned away from. His newfound wisdom and success inspired others to seize opportunities, no matter how humble. And as he sat by the campfire with Annabelle by his side, he knew he'd found more than wealth, he'd discovered his place, his purpose, and his family. The old cowboy chuckled as he concluded, and that, my friends, is how Cole Tanner, the broke drifter, became the richest man in town. It just goes to show that it don't matter where you start. What matters is how hard you're willing to work and how brave you are to face each day head-on. So remember, next time an opportunity comes your way, even if it's humble, grab it. You never know, it might just lead you to greatness.